This tutorial is for 4th grade, Module 5, Lesson 33. In this lesson, we'll continue to look at different ways to subtract mixed numbers. The first section says to write a related addition sentence and use the number line to subtract by counting on. The first problem is 3 1/3 minus 1 2/3. The related addition sentence means I'm going to take that number that I'm subtracting and start with it. 1 2/3 plus some other number will get me to 3 1/3. To figure out what that missing addend is, I'm going to use the number line to count on. So we'll start with the original number, 3 1/3. You need to find that on the number line. Here's 3 wholes. You just need to hop 1/3 past that. So that's 3 1/3. I'm also going to plot the 1 2/3. So here's my 1 whole. If I move 2 sections past that, that tells me where 1 2/3 is. This is where the related addition problem comes in. If I start at 1 2/3 and I hop a certain amount on the number line, it gets me to 3 1/3. So if I look at this hop goes from 1 2/3 to 3 1/3. Altogether, I hopped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, and each section is a third. Well, 5/3 would be the same as 3/3 plus 2/3, or 1 2/3. So that's one way I can look at that. Let's look at it another way. Again, I'll start at 1 2/3 and hop to 3 1/3, except this time I'm going to make a first jump of 3/3 because I know that that makes 1 whole. So here I've jumped 1 whole, and then if I complete my jumps, I've jumped 2/3. That's what it takes to get me from 1 2/3 to 3 1/3. That's showing the difference between these two numbers on the number line. 3 1/3 minus 1 2/3 equals 1 2/3. And that's also the missing number in my related addition sentence. 1 2/3 plus 1 2/3 equals 3 1/3. Let's look at another example. Here I have 5 1/4 minus 2 3/4. I'll start by finding 5 1/4 on the number line. So here's 5 wholes. This would be 5 1/4. Now I'm going to find 2 3/4. So here's 2 wholes. I move over 3 sections, and there's 2 3/4. If I count on to find the difference between these two fractions, what I'm really doing is finding that missing addend. So 2 3/4 plus something will get me to 5 1/4. This time I'm going to start by jumping 4/4. That will get me to 1 whole. So if I jump 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1 whole. And I think I can jump another hole here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another hole. And then to get to 5 1/4, I'll jump 2 more sections. Each of those sections is a fourth, so that's 2/4. Altogether, I jump 2 holes and 2/4. That's my missing addend. 2 holes and 2/4. That tells me that 5 1/4 minus 2 3/4 equals 2 2/4. The next section is a review of the decomposing that was done in Lesson 32. Here I have 5 3/7 minus 3 6/7. I would start by subtracting my fractions, except that I can't take 6/7 away from 3/7. So we're going to decompose 5 3/7 to allow us to do that. Since I'm working with sevenths, I'm going to think of 5 as 4 and 7/7. That's the same thing as 5. 4 is my new whole number. I'm going to take the 7/7 and combine it with the 3/7 for a total of 10/7. Now I can subtract my whole numbers and subtract my fractions to come up with my final answer. Instead of 5 3/7 minus 3 6/7, I have 4 10/7 minus 3 6/7. I'll subtract my fractions first. 10/7 minus 6/7 equals 4/7, because 10 minus 6 is 4, and 4 minus 3 equals 1. That means that 5 3/7 minus 3 6/7 equals 1 4/7. Let's look at one more example. Here I have 5 3/5 minus 2 4/5. Again, if I wanted to subtract my fractions, I can't take 4/5 away from the 3/5. So we'll decompose the 5 into 4 5/5. So 4 is my new whole number. I'll take the 5/5 and combine it with the 3/5 for a total of 8/5. Now I can do my subtraction. 4 8/5 minus 2 4/5. I'll subtract my fractions. 8/5 minus 4/5 equals 4/5, because 8 minus 4 is 4. Subtract my whole numbers. 4 minus 2 is 2. That tells me that 5 3/5 minus 2 4/5 equals 2 4/5. And again, that was just a review of what was done in lesson 32, only this time, instead of just subtracting fractions from mixed numbers, we were subtracting mixed numbers from other mixed numbers.